Happy May, everybody. My name is Charlene Liu. I am based in Shanghai. Welcome to RISE 2021. Good day and good evening to everybody, wherever you are dialing in from. I am so thrilled and so honored to be in this panel with both Nada Chaiyajit, based in Thailand, as well as Deryne Sim, based in Singapore. And today we're going to discuss about Asian perspectives on LGBT plus inclusion. So a little bit myself. I'm actually from Malaysia originally, lived in Singapore, studied in the US, and now I live in Shanghai, China. And it has been 15 years. So my background is actually in electrical engineering. I've been in manufacturing for like 2 decades, but I really found my passion on community building and LGBT plus inclusion. So hence I'm here. I'm now embarking in my full-time entrepreneurial journey in helping companies to be more inclusive, especially for our LGBT plus employees. Because why? Well, we spend most of our adult lives, most of the time at work. So it is very important to bring our whole selves to work. Now, well, at least for me, it hasn't been such an open journey. I actually only came out not so long ago. I'm in my 40s, so I came out in my 40s, like out. And I think I want to help or encourage everybody to be, whether you're an ally, whether you're part of LGBT plus community, to be friendlier or, nicer, be more inclusive, or even just try and understand our peers, because everyone is same, but different. That is a little bit about me, but as we go on into this conversation today, we're going to find out more about other things, especially from Deryne and Nada. So there are a list of questions that I will ask both our panelists. And then, first of all, I will introduce them by name, or I already did, and by country, which I already did. So I'm going to ask them to give us more details about themselves, their work, and what they can offer. So to you first, Deryne Sim, please introduce yourself, your background, your work. Maybe you have work outside of work that it might be different from your day job.
Hi, Charlene. Thanks for the introduction. So my name is Deryne, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a lawyer by profession and an LGBTQ activist by passion. So I'm based in Singapore, and I am involved in various local movements such as Pink.SG, which is what you see behind here, the Ready for Repeal movement, which was actually inspired by India's reading down of Section 377, and also the Same But Different legal guidebook for LGBTQ couples. So that's a little bit about me. Maybe now on to Nada.
Hi everyone. Wish you all a good day. I'm thrilled also. I'm very excited. And well, I'm Nada Chaiyajit. I am intersex and trans advocate. I am independent consultant, but provide my passionate service on human rights with 𝘊𝘰 Foundation as Human Rights Campaign Advisor, and for 𝘊𝘰𝘬𝘏 Association of Thailand as Senior Advisor to the Governing Board on Laws, Human Rights and Equality. In the meanwhile, I also provide services with international agencies when it's come to discriminations against LGBTIQ people in the workplace. So actually, D and I are actually the core value that keep my life moving forward.
Yes, that's great.
That's all about me.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to maybe still stay with you, Nada. Could you tell us about the status of LGBT plus inclusion in the country that you are based at?
Well, in Thailand, we couldn't say that, oh, we are like far behind, we are out of date, but the situation in Thailand was a very typical, because people believe that we are like an LGBTIQ paradise country where people can express themselves freely here. Even the Thai government provide a very beautiful advertised advertising campaign like Go Thai Briefly, but in reality, Thai people have to go out of Thailand then to be free because of the lack of legal status or the recognition of the law, for example. But we couldn't deny that in general atmosphere, Thailand is quite welcomes for you to be who you are, but when it's come to an official recognition, there are obstacles that I would like to share with you when it's come to, especially in the working environment with business sectors. So I would like to start with the provision first. I know it sounds like boring issues, but I would like to give you a foundation where we are and why. So when it comes to like the foundation of the law in Thailand, at this constitutional level, Thailand accepted the rights of LGBTIQ AM+ since 2007 and concretely recognized the rights to non-discrimination and equality before the law with the enforcement of the Gender Equality Act since 2015. But since 2016, it should be like a lot of like significant progress, but the recent survey by the World Bank 2018 is the biggest survey ever made with over 3,000 respondents covering non-LGBTIQ and LGBTIQ people. It shows that only 2% of non-LGBTIQ people recognize there is the existing of the Gender Equality Act, and only 7% among LGBTIQ members that recognize the status of this law. This means that the government has to really push this agenda harder than before. Not until last year that elected cabinets are the government and the Committee on Promotion of Gender Equality Act led by the Deputy Prime Minister. His name is Mr. Deryne Sim said advocate this law as a fundamental instrument to bring diversity and inclusion within private sectors. In the meanwhile, Thailand is a part of UN member state. Throughout the UPR second cycle, Thailand accepted the recommendation from Swedish government to develop national action plans on business and human rights. A part of that plans, there is a concrete recommendations providing the solution for business to eliminate employment discrimination and discrimination in the workplace. So it's obviously we didn't start from the scratch. We actually we're ready to kick off, but there's some challenging that we need to cover. I like to show you. It's in my hands. This is the I'm not sure you can see it. It's the business human rights are the guiding principles, which is generally widely used at the moment for business to promoting that they are being inclusive and respect diversity of people enough in terms of gender dimensions. In the meanwhile, I like to show you, this is also the National Action Plan that I mentioned about. So Thailand is now in a good hand, really. Let me show you something.
That's great.
Even in 2015, we have the law that prevent us and help us eliminate discrimination based on gender expression, gender identity. But somehow there's limitation in terms of recognizing the law by the company, by the private sector. Because, there are a bunch of laws, labors, directives, regulations that governments try to push this agenda within private sector. But in order to cover it well, I think this is an issue because the Deputy Prime Minister himself had to set up the memory, social event, call it promoting equality and eliminating unfair discrimination between genders, set up as an MOU event. For me, I was a bit shocked because the law has its enforcement by nature, but why Gender Equality Act need another step, additional step to inviting private sector to sign MOU? because it should be naturally like enforcement. So I think it's because the perception of society when it's come to gender diversity people is still like far behind, you know, because they believe in general that they are okay. They are okay. There is no need, you know, as such a particular regulation to welcome them into the world of work. But let me give you some specific data from the World Bank. You know what? Like when it's come to discrimination, it's worse for the transgender community. 70% of the transgender people experienced discrimination since the recruitment process. While lesbian people say that they face the most discrimination when they buy in property and in the labor market.
Okay.
In terms
Nanda?
of like job promotion, for example.
Nanda, I'm going to
Yes.
ask you to hold on to that because we're going to come right back to that when you talk. When I ask you another question about business cases, right?
Okay.
So where I like to, what is good, Thailand is progressing in terms of LGBT inclusion policies, and a little bit about what China is going through. Also, we hear it is not a crime to be LGBT, and it has been being LGBT has been taken off the list of mental health disease. So actually, we're in a good space. Having said that, we also have, but we have not had laws that says anything about discrimination against specifically LGBT. So we have some room for improvement, but I like to say, well, I'm being an optimist here and say that we are progressing, and I hope to see more progress in near future. So I'm going to pass this time to Deryne. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about in Singapore? What is the landscape? What is the status like?
Sure. And I'm afraid like China, like Thailand, Singapore is not very inclusive and kind of far behind compared to what Thailand has done. So for us, the main problem that we face in our laws is Section 377A of the Penal Code, which is the anti-sodomy law that we inherited from the British. So although there have not been any prosecutions under 377A since 2010, this law has other knock-on effects. So for example, transgender people must undergo compulsory sterilization surgery in order to change the gender marker on the national identity documents. And also sexual orientation and gender identity are not protected characteristics under employment laws. Additionally, our domestic laws do not recognize same-sex marriages or LGBTQ family units. And this has repercussions in various areas. So for example, in the areas of adoption, the non-biological parent or the person who is not named on the child's birth certificate is not recognized as the parent or guardian of the child. In the area of intestacy, if there's a same-sex couple and one passes away, the other partner cannot, or their children cannot inherit their assets. And also lastly, when it comes to immigration, this is the one that affects companies the most because what it means is that the government will not issue dependence visas for spouses in same-sex relationships. And this is a real problem for MNCs because you have expats coming from countries that have same-sex marriages like Europe or America, and the trailing spouse cannot remain in Singapore on the basis of being that expat spouse. So often what we see is that the trailing spouse has to make visa runs. They come and go out of the country every 90 days or so, and that is very disruptive for family life. And we have known of some examples where the expats have, after a year or two, given up and just say that no, they can't. They can't live with this arrangement and they leave Singapore, which is really a pity because if we want to attract the best talent, then this really has to change.
Yeah, I agree. Being best talent has nothing to do with gender or sexual orientation. Well, okay, talking a little bit more on lighter things, right? Do you have any interesting coming out stories that you can share, especially at work, Deryne?
For me, I'm a lawyer. So after you graduate from law school, you need to do pupillage or traineeship. It's like where they bully you for 1 year. I mean, okay, I wasn't too badly bullied. Yeah, I mean, like you have to like wipe tables and buy coffee for everyone, but that's fine.
Orientation.
Yeah, so I started off my legal career by working in 2 local law firms, and they were pretty well-known law firms in Singapore. But I felt like they weren't really safe spaces for me to come out. So in one law firm, there was a partner who made openly homophobic jokes. Like he said, "Oh, if I ever found out that my son was gay, I will bring him to Changi Village." And Changi Village is this spot in Singapore where transgender sex workers hang out. And he said, I'll bring him there and I'll say, see, this is aqua. Aqua is a slur that is really terrible, a really terrible word to use. And sorry that I had to say this during the recording. So I felt like really unsafe there. And also as a junior lawyer, you don't really want to kind of stick your head out because it might risk your retention. And as in after your pupillage, they will decide whether or not to offer you a place as a legal associate in the firm. So definitely I wasn't out in that firm. And then in the second firm that I went to, the people were really nice, but it seemed like they had no understanding of LGBT people. And one of the partners kept trying to matchmake me with men, like, oh, new male lawyer, oh, new IT guy, like, hey, would you like to meet him? And I just had to keep saying, no, like, you give me so much work, I have no time to date, ha ha ha, that kind of thing. Yeah, and it was really only after I moved in-house when I started working at US TV networks that I felt safe enough to come out. And now I make it a point that I just say it outright in my CV that I'm very involved in LGBT activism outside of work. So if the employer has an issue with that, then I'm afraid I have turned on jobs on that basis. A Swiss F&B MNC told me that, oh, it's a very conservative company, and I would not be able to say this openly in a company. And I just decided, no, I'm not going to even take the first interview with you because you're not an inclusive company.
Yeah, like I said earlier just now, it took me 40 years to come out. Well, actually 40 years to come out at work and to my mom. Well, my mom is another story. I came out to her 3 times, but actually at work, when I was working in Malaysia, in Singapore, I was pretty much in the closet, and the partner that I was living with at that time, whenever I refer to her, it will be my cousin, a very close cousin. You know, I think some colleagues will understand, some colleagues will know, and some friends already know, especially close ones. But I think for me, it's still very difficult at the time to be openly out and say, yeah, that is my partner, or yeah, she's my girlfriend, and we're hanging out, we're going for a trip together and such. And it is also because we think that there will be repercussions, there will be backlash, that the company itself as an organization or the colleagues, the employees, supervisors will see us differently, or up to a point discriminating. And the worst is getting us fired from the job. So as a young engineer back then, there was like always, you know, whatever we do, whatever I do, it has to be, I was pretty much leading a double life, one at work and one outside of work. But it was when I came to China, and not long ago, the last 9-to-5 job that I interviewed for, the people who were interviewing me already know that I was doing a lot of work in the LGBT community space. And I, again, like Deryne, I was very upfront with them and said, this is me, I am married, and I have my partner, my spouse, is a woman. And the great thing that happened, well, surprising thing that happened was when I filled up the application form for insurance, the company insurance, my wife and I both received the insurance coverage card. We was taken by surprise. We didn't know that the company even had that policy. You know, in fact, a lot of people in the company didn't know that there is a spousal benefit even for same-sex partners. So these are things that I think slowly throughout the years, policies have been implemented, but it also needs to be out there. Like, hey, I am an inclusive company. I welcome everybody regardless of background, sexual orientation, gender, and so on. So thank you for sharing that, Deryne. You just now mentioned, before we go back to Nada, right? Deryne, you mentioned just now you are part of Pink Dot. So obviously your day job and your DNI gay job are quite different in some sense. Can you tell us more about Pink Dot and how that ties into, how businesses tie into that?
Sure. So Pink Dot organizes a really big outdoor gathering every year, back before COVID, and this is the last gathering that we had in the Speakers Corner in 2019. But in order to organize this, actually a lot of funds are needed. So what we did was hold an online corporate crowdfunding campaign. And we started that in 2017 when the laws changed and when we had to seek funding only from local small and medium enterprises, or we call them SMEs here in Singapore. Yes, so after gathering a bunch of, the first year we had 120 local corporate sponsors. And after gathering a bunch of them, we said, hey, we should be doing something with this mailing list. Like we need to promote DNI within local companies. And so that's where Pink Dot comes in, and we kind of give local companies an introduction to DNI, really, really small and simple things like, oh, okay, here are pronouns she, her, him, his, and these are how pronouns work, and here's how pronouns help the transgender community. So it's things like that, and very slowly introducing the local companies to the idea of DNI. That is what Red Dot for Pink Dot does. Red Dot for Pink Dot is the name of our corporate crowdfunding campaign.
Okay, cool. Dada, do you have any coming out stories? I mean, you've done so much for the community.
Well, I would
do you
say
even need to
that
come out at
for
work?
being intersex and trans, it's well, in terms of trans and gender umbrella that I used to cover in my life, it's really, it's obviously outstanding, so I don't have to. But generally, my looks, I have and the appearance looks so feminine, but sometimes it's difficult for people to recognize, and it's always a big surprise when they recognize, oh, your voice or your card, your name title. That kind of things, it's happen all the time. Is something wrong with your voice or not? Oh my God, you are a man or something. Well, so I have to say in this record, I'm sick and tired of this. That's why I think it turns me to be an advocate, an activist advocate. And then it pushed me, to accomplish the law degree, bachelor degree, and then recently just came back from United Kingdom. Also, obtaining a master's degree in international human rights law. Well, that's a story behind that. I have to really use the legal power to make a concrete change in my countries. Because, for example, when I graduated from law school in Thailand, every single of my classmates, they received certificate beside me. You know what? Because there is a regulation that are within the certificate, you have to attach your personal avatar and must relate it to birth assigned only. So I'm the only one that cannot be issued this kind of certificate because of, I submit the photo that reflect to my true gender identity, and university say no. So I use the Law Gender Equality Act. I filed a complaint and I won as a first case. So make this historical, change, and then it's create domino effect. So effect to maybe our university. I receive lots of message directly asking me to write a complaint for them. That's how I start my legal advocacy throughout, and also expanding into the business sectors, because I was once helped Samsung mobile company and one of the leading human resource company at Thailand to solve their case because accidentally they applied non-trans recruitment policies at the operational level. So at the policy level, the executive level, they actually didn't know what's going on the ground. But this already affect to a transgender person who already passed the test with the high marks, eligible to be a new staff. And they don't know how to do with them. They just close the application. So, and they left the trans girl who already resigned from the previous company. So I bring the case. I use my social networking platforms. I'm bringing all the knowledge about the like the BHR, the Business and Human Rights, the National Action Plans, together with Gender Equality Act. I could bring the solutions, and beautifully without our legal this dispute before prior. We solved the problem before filing the complaint. So it showed the standard letters and its effect to others company. That's the case.
That's a good case. Do you have any more stories like that? And how are other companies like seeing that? What are they doing now that you see?
I would say like there are three types of the movement within the company by themselves. First, the company that realized that this issue is not just a trend, it's not a fashion, but is this a fundamental human rights thing to do? For example, we have the Global Compact Thailand, which is the group of company that apply business and human rights guiding principle from the UN, as well as the SDG. So we also have the company that voluntarily pledge to implement business to implement the BHR guidelines in their own company. Surprisingly, it's not the international corporation, is local. So, for example, Sansari is one of the leading property development in Thailand. They reach out to the UNDP, being LGBT in Asia, voluntary to implement one of the powerful soft law instruments to eliminate all discrimination and promote gender equality at the workplace. So followed by DTAC. DTAC is the company that provides service on internet and mobile operators. So they even wrote clearly in their code of conduct about the protections and the promotions of all employees, including LGBTIQ. So this kind of company that really working on grounding the core value of the business operations within their own companies. But they also the case of the company that they change the policies because of the law. For example, we have the company that sell housings and constructions. Usually they have many branch in Bangkok, but there is a case that a transgender's PC product consulting from a very famous Japanese electric company allocate to works in that branch. But the branch manager, when he found out that the PC is transgender person, he said, "No, you are not allowed to enter in the building."
Why?
Because we want to keep the positive image of our branding. So having trans persons selling products might not look good enough. So she filed a complaint, and the results under the Gender Equality Act, and the results came out outstandingly, because when the executive directors found out that, he said that it was a shame for the company. If he knew at the first place this situation won't happen, but at the end it lead to a policy change also. So the company announced the human rights policies, which is state clearly about non-discrimination in the recruitment, and also promoting safe space for people with diversity, and including LGBTI. So it's said clearly in their own code of conduct.
Okay,
so this case is very
Yeah, I mean, it's good in some ways that cases bring about positive changes, right? But in order to sometimes going through cases, it takes time, it takes effort, and there's a lot of negative energy might go into it. So what do you think, like, even before that happened, like, how can we upfront just implement positive changes without going through all the negativity? What do you think, Deryne? I mean, what do you think business can do, and why do you think they should bother?
I'll start with the why first. So there's always the business case, but I'll start with the ethical case, and just that simply just it means D&I is the right thing to do, and you should do right by your customers and your employees and all your stakeholders. Then there's of course the business case, which is, like I said earlier, you want to be able to attract and retain the best talent. So just for example, Alan Turing, the famous mathematician, Tim Cook from Apple, or the Wachowski sisters who directed The Matrix. These are all LGBT talents at the top of their field. If these people were your candidates, are you going to say, no, I don't want you in my company? That's insane. You will definitely want talents like that. Yeah. And also companies that are more diverse and inclusive are better able to anticipate the needs of all their customers and have access to a broader client base. So I'll give you an example of something that happened in Singapore a couple of years ago. IKEA, the furniture store, the Singapore branch collaborated with a homophobic magician pastor. So he does magician shows, like really big, high value, high budget shows, and he performs with his family, and that's his day job. And then his anti-gay job is being is opposing everything that the LGBT NGOs do in Singapore. So IKEA collaborated with him and gave a discount for his shows, and there was huge backlash. So Pink Dot had nothing to do with this. This was members of the public on their own accord, writing on social media and writing to IKEA Singapore that, hey, you are not being inclusive by collaborating with this magician, and certainly you are not reflecting the values of your Swedish headquarters. So then IKEA released a statement and said something like, oh no, we just want some family-friendly entertainment for all our IKEA Singapore members to enjoy, but we will take note of this. Yeah, so had there been an LGBT person on their marketing and rewards team, this saga wouldn't have happened because that person would have picked it up and flagged it to management.
Yeah, well, a good example is there. I recently came across a similar webinar, and this consumer product company showed an advertisement which the tagline really stuck to me. It says, hair has no gender, because consumer product is the shampoo, right? So they actually had an ad that shows everybody from different genders and hair, So I like it because it's about the product being inclusive, saying, yeah, really, hair has no gender, and shampoo should not also, it's not related to gender as well. I think I'm sure there are many campaigns, inclusive campaigns out there. I'm sure there are also many companies and corporates out there that are inclusive, and some are showing it, some are not. But I think those who are showing it, great, good job. Thank you for doing it. It shows that you care about people and you care about your employees. We don't have much time left, but I want to kind of wrap this all up, because this is really about Asian perspectives, right? What we can do, what we see, and how we can move forward. So maybe last word from both of you on how we can make businesses more inclusive, or how businesses can help the community, the LGBT plus community. Nada?
So I'd like to bring example, but I will leave as my last message, because a good example I show within this webinar, it's about, we can see how our business sectors or private sector utilize their business powers. And because they're big enough, when the giant moved, it's checking society in general perceptions. So for example, like the big company in terms of like consuming our consumer providers, the big company in who play a crucial role in property development to ensure that LGBTI couples can enjoy financial product for housing, for example. It's kind of like changing social perception. So, and they are not standalone company. They have supply chains. So if they apply the tool that I mentioned earlier, whether like the National Action Plan, the guiding principle, if they apply within their own supply chains, it's going to make effects, you know, like we are looking for domino effects. So we should reach out to the big company as much as we can, bringing D&I, but not in a way that it's about the trend. D&I can ensure you to achieve in the goal in different dimension. It's not about the SDG, the popularity SDG, like global agenda. It's just about human rights. As a human rights person, when you apply D&I and make it works, you know, on the ground in your communities and within your own people and also the community around you, it's going to bring lots of change. It's going to bring value, and value is not because you gain more benefits from buyers, but you can share your honor and dignity that your business take responsible and carry now even within the marginalized group of people like us. Well, actually, I don't think we are marginalized anymore, and because many companies they take D&I because they see that a lot of like talented people we are a part of this big amount of talented people in the market, in the labor market. So I think, yeah, this is the last message I'd like to leave for everyone.
Thank you very much, Nada. Deryne?
Yeah, so if you can only remember one thing from today, I would really like you to go away with this message, and that is, please take the lead from local activists. They know the ground best. So if you're a company and you want to contribute, you can do so in cash or kind. Cash is always preferred because it lets us pay for the goods and services that we need. If you're concerned about accountability, give vouchers. And I'll just give an example of why I say take the lead. So I had a conversation recently with SAP, and they were really nice. So they wanted to help this transgender shelter, and they asked the shelter what they need. So now any other company would have just gone on a grocery run and bought bags and bags of food and left it at the shelter. But this company actually bothered to listen, and the shelter told them that companies love to give them bags and bags of food, but they have no place to store it. So they actually asked for vouchers, and SAP gave them vouchers, which was what they really appreciated and what they needed. And then another example of something that you can do in kind if you have no budget or no cash is that you can offer the services that you have. So for example, Pink Dot is collaborating with Sephora, the French makeup and beauty chain. So they have an e-commerce arm, and they also have 11 physical stores in Singapore. So they very kindly offered to be our fulfillment partner for our merchandise this year, which is what we really need, because every year it's a bunch of 50 of us driving our cars, our motorbikes around Singapore and dropping off our Pink Dot merchandise. So we're really grateful to have corporate partners who listen to us and take the lead from us.
Thank you. I really thank you very much, Deryne. You know, every time I join a webinar, whether as a panelist, as a moderator, or as a participant, especially webinars such as these, I walk away very inspired, because sometimes doing groundwork to help the community, to help society to be more inclusive, especially for my LGBT plus peers, it can be tiring. Sometimes even, I don't even know what to say, like how to move on. But I'm very inspired by both of you. Please continue the work that you do. For the audiences, please remember, inclusion is not only done by corporates, by leadership, by government, or people working on the ground. It is by everyone, including you as individuals, including the community and society that you live, work, and play at, including the companies that you work at, schools that you go to, the places that you basically exist. It involves everyone. inclusion involves everyone. So maybe the next person, the person next to you wants to hear about it, or even if that person doesn't know about LGBT+, start a conversation and keep it going. There should be a ripple effect. It should be top down, bottom up, and going side by side. I'm getting a little bit pumped out right now. Thank you very much for listening in. Thank you, Pride Circle, for inviting all of us. Thank you, Nada and Deryne, for joining me in this journey. So take care and see you around soon. Oh, and you have any questions, please put it down in the chat box or the Q&A box down there. Have a good day. Have a good evening. Take care, everyone.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.